This is Damian Macy, representing the Friends of the Marshall Public Library, and we're working on an oral history project with interviews. Today is Thursday, August the 20th of 2015, and I'm at the Marshall Public Library with Mary Jo Licata. She was born in this area but lived away from Marshall for quite some time and is back now with us. And I bet we'll find the story of why she left and then also what brought her back. So with that, I'll introduce you to Mary Jo.
Okay. Will we start out when I was born?
That's fine.
Where? Well, I was born in Marshall in 1930, April the 30th, up on Michigan Avenue, where we had a little house that sat where I think it's Fink Banner's real estate office is now.
Okay.
And the Dairy Queen sits where our garden was. And I grew up there and lived there until I think my first year of high school. We moved out on Old 40. And
Was that east or west?
East.
East.
That has all been redone now with the new 40 that went through, so the house and that isn't even there anymore. Well, my birth house isn't there either. We grew up with I think, a unique gang of kids in the north end of town. I grew up with Harold Noyes and Clyde Jr. Knowles, and the Shalver kids while their dad was deputy sheriff and sheriff here. And, well, I think several of the deputies and sheriffs' families lived in the same house up on Michigan Avenue. And so we played with all of those kids. Owen Flowers was in that group too. I have one brother, Don Montgomery, and a sister, Barbara Jean Montgomery. Do you want her maiden or her married name?
If you like.
Well, it's Henderson, but she just passed away, so it was Henderson.
And her first name was?
Barbara.
Barbara.
Barbara Jean. My dad and his brother Ralph had a machine shop that sits where our water tower is today.
Okay.
And my grandmother had a boarding house where the Dollar General store is.
Yes, I remember
that?
Mm-hmm. I sure do.
And so us kids frequent uptown quite a bit. We always had to go see Grandma and Grandpa.
Of course.
And I remember Ratty Maker's ice cream parlor, and gosh, you couldn't get any better ice cream than that.
Mm.
And went to the Northside School.
Do you remember who any of your teachers were at the North Side?
Yeah, my first grade teacher was a Miss Ewing. Second grade teacher was Mrs. Connerton.
She was my second grade teacher
She
also.
was a sweetheart. I still remember her till today. Third grade, I had a Bubeck in there, but I don't remember whether she was third and fourth grade was Liggett, Miss Liggett. Fifth grade was Veach. And then we had some teachers that were brought in from somewhere, and I don't remember who my sixth and seventh grade. I had Bertha Conemacher.
Oh, yeah?
And Mary Washburn for a short time. I think she retired right after I had her.
Do you remember some things about the physical appearance of that old school?
Oh yeah, we roller skated all around it every summer. We lived on roller skates there. And inside was a big open hallway, and the classrooms all opened off of that. And other than that, I don't remember anything.
There wasn't anything called air conditioning either, as I recall.
No. And we had the steam heat, and in the wintertime they'd crank the windows open, and sometimes the water would run out from under the radiators. But we survived in spite of everything.
As I recall, there were no water fountains and no washrooms on the main levels either. They were all in the basement.
You're right, they were. I'd forgotten about that. I remember when they had the milk program and all the kids got milk.
Yes, I do too.
And once in a while you'd be lucky to get one of those little half pints where the cream had raised a little bit, and oh, I loved that.
I didn't like that at all.
Oh, I did.
That was what I didn't like. I could have passed you mine. There was a major effort when I was in school. It may have been after you during the war, of stamp program. You bought stamps and put in a little book, and you could take it to the post office then and get a savings bond.
Oh, I remember that too. Yeah.
But it kind of started in school. They were encouraging savings.
Well, we made posters about Japan and Italy and our enemies back. They were for a patriotic drive for the stamps and everything. I can remember making those.
As I recall, the playground wasn't exactly soft either.
No, but boy, we had some good ball games. I do remember the one bad thing about our playgrounds. We had the swings, and every now and then somebody get their head caved in with the seat, and that was always bad. But other than that, I loved the teeter-totters, and when I got older, we always had a ball game going at recess.
There was I guess kind of like a merry-go-round type of thing when I was there too. Did you have that?
I don't remember a merry-go-round. Probably was, but maybe I didn't play on it. I was probably on the teeter-totters or the swings.
But a lot of it was almost cinders and then, just
Yeah.
grass and hard. That if you took a tumble, it usually had a skinned-up elbow or knee.
And they had the big old trees out around the outer perimeter. And the guys, when they play ball, what happened to my brother, he was going for a fly ball and ran right into one of those trees and really knocked him silly for a while.
Tree didn't
Had
move a
some
bit, did it?
loose teeth and some boogered up places on him, but he learned to watch for the trees after that.
Do you remember some of the games you played out on the school ground?
Most of ours was, we'd do a ball game, get a ball game going. And sometimes some of the girls would do, gosh, I even forgot, pick up jacks or something with the ball and the jack stones, and jumped rope.
Did you do any skating while you were in school? Like it's recess or anything?
No, don't remember. I don't think we were allowed
I
to.
don't think so either. I couldn't remember.
It was always after school and during the summertime. But that was the neatest place to skate. Because you could just go constantly around and around and around and around.
Do you ever take a tumble on that ground around there? Because skating,
If I did,
sometimes
I don't.
if you got it got too close on the corner to the brick, you could either get banged up on the brick or it'd shove you off to the ground.
I probably didn't skate that fast. But we did a lot of jumping rope there too.
Did you go all 8 grades at that building?
Yes.
Okay. Because all 8 grades were there when I was too. And then
Yeah, we had our 8th grade graduation picture taken on the First Methodist Church steps, like every other class did.
Part of history.
Yeah.
So from there, do you recall what year you graduated from the north side?
Well, we've been, well, I was born in 30. I went to school, started school when I was 8. In 8 more years, we've been, what, 40, 41, 42? I don't remember.
Okay, that's all right. So from there then, you obviously went to a
High
place
school.
called Marshall High School.
Marshall
And that was
Township High School.
the red brick building that was set way back from 6th Street, wasn't it?
My junior year was the year the tornado took the 3rd floor off of it. And I can remember going back to school and Mildred Atkinson, Hutchins.
Yes.
We had typing class in I guess it was a cloakroom. And crowded. Oh, I don't know how we ever got through it, but we did.
Do you have some fond memories about that building and your school?
I had a lot of fun in band,
Oh,
and I was a cheerleader. And I enjoyed school, but I did probably everything everybody else has done when they went to high school.
did you, what instrument did you play in band?
Trombone.
Trombone. Good choice.
Max Brandstein was our drum major, and then Maxine Belts was after him.
Oh, yes. And Maxine just passed away a few weeks ago, really.
Yeah,
And who was the band instructor?
Von Arne.
Von Arne, I'll bet.
I had him in grade school too. I started trombone, I think, in the 5th or 6th grade. They had a music program and kids could start instruments, and then I carried it on through high school. And I wished I'd have kept it up, but I didn't.
Did you play any other instrument in addition to trombone?
No.
Going back a second to the old North Side School, did you have a chorus or a music session on the top, way up in the top floor?
Probably did.
Because when I was there, Von Arne used to come by and play the piano for our singing and vocal music program.
All I remember was, or what I remember of the music part of grade school was the trombone.
Okay.
But I sang the solo at graduation, 8th grade graduation.
Wow.
So, and he was the instigator for that.
Do you recall what song you did?
I think it was All Sweet Mystery of Life.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. I know I was scared to death.
Surely not. I know music's always been a part of my life, and I love music, and it's a great pastime,
Good
and a great
outlet.
hobby to
You
have.
bet.
During those years, did you have some other hobbies that maybe even something that's carried into your later life?
Oh, my mind's blank right now. I've always liked crafts and stuff like that, and I've carried that on through my life. I'm deep into quilts now.
Oh, wonderful.
Making quilts. I love to sew.
Do you belong to a quilting group?
Yes, the National
Road
Quilt Guild. Yeah, I joined it when it started, and I've gone ever since. Enjoy it thoroughly.
You made some wonderful quilts for the veterans.
Yeah,
Those are beautiful.
I've got one ready to go for this November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going back to high school, was there a favorite subject that you had when you were in school?
There were some I didn't like. Algebra and geometry kind of went over my head. I always liked English because I liked Miss Geiser.
Wilma Geiser.
I thought she was a real good.
She was my wife's favorite teacher.
She knew how to teach kids.
I guess going back to the school and all, was there someone in school who really was an impact on your future life and maybe kind of set you in a certain direction?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. The going through high school then, and do you recall what year you graduated from?
I didn't graduate.
Okay.
I would have graduated in the class of 48.
48.
I went through my junior year.
Okay.
And I dated Don Weaver at the time, and we got married and moved to Detroit, Michigan
Wow.
for a year. Then we come back here for a while. And then I think it was 1960, we moved to Tucson, Arizona. We lived there 5 years and then moved to Phoenix and lived there 5 years and then on to California. And then I come back here in 1993.
Just to make a kind of a brief comparison, Arizona obviously is a different climate and all, but how would you compare Marshall to the cities you lived in Arizona?
Oh, there's no comparison. You're talking about climate and everything is so different. I love the Southwest. And if I were younger and had some contacts, I'd probably move back to the Southwest somewhere. Probably not California, but I'd go either to Tucson or Phoenix area. I love the weather there.
Even in, say, August and September?
Mm-hmm. It's a different kind of heat,
Oh, yeah.
which you've probably heard that many times.
But when it's 110, dry heat or not, it's still hot.
Well, when it's 85 here and the humidity is about 60%, it's bad. Out there, you would sweat, but your clothes didn't get wet, like here. Here you wear the weather. Out there, you enjoy it.
That's right.
But small town, I think Marshall's pretty hard to beat. I really do.
What part of California were you living in?
I lived in Buena Park, which is it connected right to Anaheim, Huntington Beach, and in that area.
Very
Orange
busy,
County.
but a growing area.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I probably wouldn't recognize anything now because I've been back here. Well, I came back in '93, so I've been back here 23 years. A lot of changes. I'm kind of glad I'm not there now with the water shortage.
I was just getting ready to say, that seemed like a growing major problem for that
bad.
whole corridor along, because they depend on everything from the Colorado River. And by the time it gets down to the south, there's not much water left.
They say, it was on TV the other day, California's sinking a foot a year.
That's a long way.
That's frightening. And I wonder what it does to the gas lines, the water lines, and all that's underground.
Did you ever have an earthquake while you were there?
Oh yeah. We lived out there when that Silmar earthquake
That was
hit.
a big one.
It was big and it was bad. Yeah. They're pretty frightening, but you don't know they're coming. They happen and they're gone. Here, you're warned of tornadoes hours and hours ahead of time, and I'm a basket case by the time the storm gets here. I'm a nervous wreck. I hate the tornado warnings. I just leave, they didn't just turn the siren on when it comes time and leave it off of TV.
Well, I know that an earthquake event must be very, very unnerving and also very dangerous, because sometimes there's not major structural damage, but things can fall. Even things on a shelf can be a major injury from things flying around.
Well, that one that happened at Silmar, it happened in the morning. I was getting ready to go to work, and I can remember I was sitting on the foot of the bed, and all at once it looked like the bedroom was breathing. The walls were kind of, expanding and coming back in.
Oh my.
And then it was over with. So it's frightening right at the moment, but they're here and gone so quick.
Did you have major damage to
No. We didn't have
really?
any damage. But it was all in Northern California where the damage was. Some of the overpasses probably had a little bit of damage, but personally we didn't have any at the house.
Fortunately. You mentioned you were getting ready to go to work. What kind of work did you do out there?
I worked at Sears in their huge credit central.
You think maybe that's changed a little bit since you were there?
Oh, I'm sure it's changed a lot. I worked at Sears when it was still a big booming company, but it's struggling just like a lot of other companies are now. And I don't know whether they even still have the big credit centrals like we had.
Not sure.
We worked, our first credit central was constructed in the lower underground of a shopping mall.
My.
And we were just a huge room. And I think at one time we had close to 300 employees. But we were just like one big happy family. And then they started taking the benefits away from us and cutting this and cutting that, and went to mostly part-time help instead of full-time. And it lost a lot.
I'm sure.
Lost a lot.
At that time, were the credit purchases made on a little metal plate that was embossed with the name, or had you converted to plastic?
I think it was always plastic.
Okay.
I don't remember a metal plate. Not Sears.
Okay. They may have been well ahead of the game, because it used to be, instead of a credit card, you had a little metal plate with your name embossed on it, and that's what they would use to emboss your name
I
and
think
numbers.
Sears has always been silver, and it looked like metal, but it was plastic. I still have a Sears card. I don't shop there very often, but...
Had they developed and begun to use computers at that time?
Well, not when I started. Everything was done by hand, and
Posting machines?
big old posting machines, huge posting machines. And then little by little it changed. I can remember fighting with my credit manager. We were getting electric typewriters, and I did not want an electric typewriter. I love my manual. And he says, you have to have electric. So finally, I asked him if I could buy mine and take it home. And they sold it to me for $1.
And we're probably glad to have you move it out of the building.
Yeah, but I can remember I held out for about 6 months, and then finally he wouldn't let me get by with the manual anymore. We did all of our billing by a typewriter at that time. I was supervisor of the merchant's credit accounts, so I had my own little group of people, and we did all of our billing by hand. But now the easy payment plans and the revolving credit plans. They were handled by a different section. They had a service group that serviced the account, and then they had a collection group that any of them fell past due. That's all they did was sit on the phone and collect. So you had phones ringing everywhere all the time. But it was a lot of fun. We had the best time. And we had some of the best cooks in that office. We'd have potlucks.
Oh.
And of course their recipes would fly around like crazy. We even had our own cookbook at one time. And I still keep in touch with 5
Wonderful.
employees.
Did you have a cafeteria in the building also?
No, they had a cafeteria on the 3rd floor of the store.
Okay.
And we worked under the store at that time in the lower level. And in fact, I went to lunch one day at the cafeteria, and on my way back out, I fell and broke my hip.
Hi.
So I can remember the cafeteria part of it. That was in 82, 1982.
Okay. That old typewriter that you took home, did that make you think maybe of Mildred Hutchins and some of your typing days in the school?
I was one of the last ones to pass her typing test. Would you believe that? And by the time I got out in the working world and I had typed so much at work, I did a speed test and I was one of the fastest ones.
Good.
At the end. So I owed a lot to her. But I had a long name when I was in high school, and I was always one of the last ones to finish typing my name, because, she always made you type your name on your paper first.
Okay.
And if she said, now this is a time test, my fingers all went to thumbs. I'm not good on tests.
Do you remember what kind of typewriter it was?
I think I had a Remington.
Okay. That's what I learned to type on also.
I know it was a Remington, but the one at high school, I'm pretty sure it was Remington also. And I think that's why I loved the one at work. It brought back memories. Because it was just like the ones with, the old open keys and everything. And heavy as lead.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But,
you used them as a boat anchor. Did you finally get used to that modern electric one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Was it an IBM? Or was it a Remington?
I don't even remember what it was.
In that period of time, you were probably well past the manual adding machines and all, and had electric adding machines and everything.
Yeah, they had the electric ones then.
Okay.
Now, when I first started working at Sears, they had the credit department up on, they called it the mezzanine. It was kind of a balcony, and they had the old crank or lever ones, yeah.
Uh-huh.
We did, and like if you bought, say, a piece of furniture and put it on easy payment, and you paid so much each month on it, you had a little book, like a pass book at the bank,
yes.
and we'd enter their payment in it, and everything was done by hand back then. But then slowly but surely, it just all, until it got
And anymore, if the
automated.
power fails, business comes to a complete halt.
Well, that was happening when I left Sears. They were having a lot of problems. Yeah, you're right. When they didn't have power, you might as well go home.
Oh, nothing
You
happened.
just had to sit there and wait.
From your experience in California then, was there something that brought you back to the Midwest or back to Marshall?
Yeah, my dad had passed away, and Mom was here. I think she lived 2 years back here all alone. And my brother was battling diabetes, and he was not a good patient. He he was on a self-destruct course.
Huh.
It just, and he, of course, it caused problems in his marriage. And so every time he and his wife would get into it, he'd come back to Marshall and stay with Mama. He was a mama's boy anyway. And he got kind of mean, and Mom was afraid of him. And so I'd call her, probably, I never missed going over 2 weeks calling her. Always checked in with her. And one day she said, I just can't do this anymore. And I said, what's the matter? And she said, well, it's your brother. And she said, I'm afraid of him and blah, 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 you know. And so I said, well, you know what? I'm at the point in my life that I can sell out and come back. And at that time, I didn't think my mother would live very, very much longer. And I didn't have plans on staying here.
Really?
I figured she had probably four or 5 years. Well, she lived 10 years after I come back. And by that time, I put down roots, and I had made contact. Well, one of my old classmates from high school made contact with me, and we got married after I moved back here. Okay. And so I thought, well, I've got roots here, I'll just stay here. So I did the complete circle, or I have done the complete circle.
Now, you had some early memories of Marshall, and you mentioned Rademacher's and some things. When you moved back to Marshall, did you kind of find it pretty much the same, or did it changed a lot?
No. The people are different. My memories were back when everybody helped each other. You were always welcome to everything. Marshall has some cliques, and they're hard to break into. I didn't try, but I had a friend that did, and she wasn't too successful. She's passed on now, but anyway, I've made my own friends, but there are cliques here. The gossip never changed. In fact, when I was young, I always thought it beat me home when I went out. My parents knew what I did before I even got home.
Well, I guess that's one of the features of a small town, that everyone knows everyone else.
And you have to be careful what you say about one person, because they get to talking and everybody's related to everybody else if you go far enough.
I think that's one of the major differences between a small town and living in the cities like you're talking about.
In fact, I was standing out in my mailbox last year getting my mail, and a car pulled up, and this guy said, do you have a weed whacker? And I said, well, I've got one, but it's on its last leg. I said, I have trouble keeping it running. I got to buy a new one. I said, why? He said, well, I thought I'd get it from you. And he said, somebody sprayed the weeds out here around the fire hydrant and the telephone pole. And he said, I thought I'd just clean it up, make it look a little bit better. And I said, well, I sprayed weed killer out there, because the city didn't do anything. I mean, you couldn't even see the fire plug. And he pulled up in the driveway, and he got talking, and he said, finally, I asked him, I said, well, who are you? And he said, well, I'm Chuck Idle. He said, you may have known my dad, Fred Idle. And I said, well, yeah, I should. I said, Fred was my dad's cousin. And he said, well, who are you? So Chuck and I have become friends. And when I get in a bind for mowing or something, he's real good about, all I got to do is call him and say, Chuck, help me out. And he'll bring his mower over and mow.
That's one thing. There is a lot of volunteerism in Marshall, and people, if there is an issue or a problem, people do seem to come together and help that.
Well, now, after I lived here for several years, then I guess I more or less got accepted, because like the Quilt Guild, we're doing things, and we make pillowcases for the Sarah Bush Hospital. We take them over there for the kids, and things like that. So, yeah, and churches, the churches are very giving, helpful.
And where is it you actually live?
Did you know where my parents lived doing Montgomery? Out by GNS Asphalt,
Yes.
out east of Marshall?
Yes.
I live right next door to where my parents lived.
Okay.
I'm the next house down from, do you know where Randy McGinnis lives?
Not exactly, but pretty close. Yeah.
Well, let's see. If you go out East Archer and turn south at the road right across from where the old brick cabins used to be, red brick cabins, Jarvis's now, and down at the first curve. I live on the first curve.
Okay. So you're kind of in town, but yet in the country.
I'm in city limits.
Yeah.
We annexed in.
Yeah.
And I'm like Dad. Dad always said he had the best spot in Marshall, and I have to agree with him. I live in the best spot in Marshall. Just far enough away from town, but yet not too far. And I'm situated where I've got roads on two sides of me and a big deep ditch on the other two. Nobody can build up next to me. I really like where I live.
You got some privacy.
Definitely.
It's funny that you mentioned that thing about everyone knowing everyone else's business, because when we moved back from the Chicago area, our kids found that same thing.
Yeah.
We knew about what they had done before they got home. Was there ever an event or something, world event, that really influenced you, or maybe just such an indelible memory that you have of that?
Oh, I can remember when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. I was scared to death. I thought the world was coming to an end. We lived up on Michigan Avenue at the time. I was 12. It was either 12 or 13. 12, I think. And at that time, where, let's see what's built there now. You know, after you live away for so long, you kind of forget where this was, because that up on Michigan Avenue, most of that was big open fields, and now it's all built up in homes. Anyway, there was a, it's where the first State Bank sits, in that car wash.
Yeah.
There was a grocery store right on the corner, Dill's.
Van Arsendale's.
Van Arsendale's had it. Dill's. The Dill boy was the first one who went down with that Gahey boy on the submarine at that time period. His parents ran that grocery store, and they had a little row that set back off of Michigan Avenue. There was, I can't remember how many, but there were little cabins there. And I can remember they had picnic tables out in the yard in front of it. And people gathered at those picnic tables and discussed. I was scared to death. I just thought surely the world was going to come to an end. It just, we'd never been attacked before. And that's all you could get on the radio. So that left a big impression on me.
I'm sure.
And there are two other things. Halloween time and the summertime of the band concerts. That's one of the reasons I decided to stay in Marshall this time, was the band concerts. I enjoy. I haven't gone the last 2 years because last year they had streets all torn up. And it's okay going, but when the band concert's over, it's dark. And I was afraid I'd trip and fall. And I'm getting at the age where I don't need to have accidents. And this last summer, I don't know where this year's gone. August,
Evaporated.
it has just taken my breath away this month. I have been so busy, and I can't believe I haven't accomplished anything at home. I've been on the go. And usually I'm at home.
You know, that's what I think keeps you going.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever play in the city band?
No.
Maybe that trombone you did? I played in the city band for 35 years straight.
I know, and I admire you people so much.
I finally turned it over to the next generation last year. I decided it was
Oh, did you quit?
time for someone else.
Oh,
And I enjoyed every minute of it. Always
Yeah.
enjoyed music, but that's,
I always felt sorry for you when you'd start the band concert and a storm would blow in.
happens once in a while.
I'd think all those music cases out there open, they'd get soaking wet before you could get to them. Because I stood under the canopy up here at Shore Murphy's one night, and the rain was just pouring down, and you guys were all stuck up on the gazebo.
Usually just a light drizzle or lightning and thunder, that finished it. But if there was just a light drizzle, a lot of people stayed in their cars, so
Oh, yeah.
we'd usually continue on
Yeah.
playing. Going back to the starting of World War II, I remember there being blackouts. Do you remember those?
Not in Marshall. Did we have blackouts?
We did in about 1943 and 4. Because I remember as a youngster, the folks had to make sure at certain times turn the lights off, and the lights in the city were all turned off. And
Maybe we were already gone to bed. Because I know we had to go to bed early. My folks worked hard, and my dad was a firm believer that when nighttime comes, that's time to go to bed and go to sleep.
Well, I just thought you might remember that too, because it
I
was
don't
in
remember
that
the
in that
blackouts.
era that was kind
They
of
talked
unusual.
about having them, but I didn't.
Because right through here, Route 40 was a major corridor,
Uh-huh.
and then Martinsville had the big tank farm and all of that. So it was kind of, I guess,
Yeah, we lived up
target.
on Michigan Avenue at that time. But I just, maybe
you were
I
snoozing
just-
away.
I just don't remember it.
I'll just ask
I
you,
remember the sugar rationing and coffee rationing, yeah.
the little stamps you had
Yeah.
to take to the grocery store. You remember all the grocery stores we used to have around town?
Do you remember when we had the A&P store?
Mm-hmm.
I do too.
And there were Poormans and Blizzards and Spots and all the different markets around town.
I used to
Crocs.
butcher 20 chicken fryers for Foster Blizzard every Friday. After Don and I got married, and we lived in Detroit, and then we moved back here, and he had a rural milk route. And then the bottom went out of the milk prices, so we were struggling. And he thought, well, he'd raise some chickens. And Foster Blizzard found out that we had them, and we had a standing order for 20 fryers every Friday. And those were hard times.
Do you ever go to a restaurant and buy chicken or fried chicken now?
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, I love fried
Okay,
chicken.
I thought
could
maybe
eat-
that would just
No,
ended
I could
your-
eat fried
okay.
chicken 3 times a day, every day. I never get tired of chicken. But to dress them, well, we lived out in the country. In fact, we lived in the house that they just recently burned, Betty Fraker's house. That's where Don and I lived. It was just it was a perfect square, and they had divided it in equal parts. We had a kitchen, a bedroom, a living room, and then this room back here we used as another bedroom, but it could have been used for a dining room or whatever. And then when Bob and Betty bought the house, they added on to it and made it much nicer and bigger. But anyway, to get back to what I was telling you, our water source was a pump out in the middle of the front yard. So I had to pump all the water and carry it around the house, had to buy blocks of ice to ice the chickens. It was hard work. I had to pump the water, carry it in the house, put it on the cook stove and heat the water. We didn't have electricity at that time. And heat the water to scald the chickens. And then I'd go out and kill the chickens, and Mom would help me pick them and that. And
Wet feathers.
and I think maybe we got probably $1 for the fryers. I don't even remember what we were paid for them. And then we raised rabbits for a while. So those memories I kind of like to. Remember old Johnny Bouger?
Oh, yeah.
He lived right across the road from us. And when my second daughter was born, she had a little rough time right at the beginning. But Johnny took a liking to her. And he'd come over when he was sober and talk to her and play with her and everything. And when I weaned her from the bottle, he swore up and down I was starving that child to death. But yeah, I have some fond memories, but then I have some memories I just leave back there.
You mentioned ice. I'm sure you had a card that you put in the window whether you needed 25, 50, or 100
because we lived way
pounds.
out there and we didn't have any ice.
No delivery?
No, we had to go come in and pick it up
Okay.
at
And
the
where
ice.
did you pick that up? I think I know.
You know, I think he went to out there where the cheese plant was, wasn't it? I know they had a dock that you backed up to. Was that down here on
I
2nd
think it was
Street?
on 5th Street.
Or 5th Street?
It's about where the VFW is now.
Okay,
There was Smitley Ice there.
that's what it was.
And
Yeah.
there's-
I couldn't remember where it was, but Don would come in and get the ice. And then every other day, because at that time, he was working for Newberry's Feed and Grain. And we were just kids. We were having a hard time.
My dad worked for Newberry's also.
Oh, really? Yeah. We really didn't have a stable income or anything until Don went with Jewel Tea. He was a Jewel Tea man for many years. I think he was with Jewel Tea about 24 years. That's what took us to Arizona.
Arizona. Okay. Are there any of those years you would, sometimes people talk about the good old days, any of those years you continue or would like to repeat?
Oh, some of the things I always enjoyed the family get-togethers on Sunday, and I get amused at people today when you got food sitting out and they'll say, "Oh, we gotta get this in the refrigerator." My grandma had us in every Sunday, Grandma Montgomery, and she'd take one chicken and feed a bunch of people. And whatever was left over, they'd clean the dirty dishes up and that, but all the food was just kind of scooted to the center of the table and throw a tablecloth over it, and everybody picked from it all afternoon. We never had food poisoning or anything. And I get so tickled at some people, they think everything has to be refrigerated right now.
But you know, I think there may be a difference in the food too, that those chickens were fresh.
Well, yeah.
Where today, they
Yeah.
may have been killed a long time ago and kept on ice.
But
or
they're cooked,
I know.
you know? It's not like you're laying raw chicken out there. Yeah. Yeah, and chicken doesn't taste the same as it did when it was, free range or whatever you want to call it.
Those days of the ice, did you ever let the refrigerator, the ice box, run over?
Many times. Don finally drilled a hole in the floor and let it drain out.
Worked too, didn't it?
Yep. Yep, we had a gasoline washing machine, and I'm probably one of few women living around Marshall, well, there may be more, that ironed with the old flat irons that you had to heat on the stove. Because when we lived out there, we didn't have electricity.
You didn't have air conditioning either when that stove was heating
Didn't
the irons
have
during the
fans or
summer.
anything. We had old black heating stove to heat with and a cook stove in the kitchen. And
That's
boy,
what
that cook stove could really bake some good angel food cakes, so.
But it kept the kitchen mighty warm during the summer
Oh,
too,
in the
didn't it?
summertime, yeah. Yeah, it was, you kind of plan different than what you do today.
And that's why some of the places, some larger houses had a summer kitchen too.
Uh-huh. We weren't that fortunate. We were having a hard, we struggled when we first got married.
Mary Jo, you've talked about a lot of things that we remember from the past, and we all have so many modern conveniences all around us today. Is there anything you would say, gosh, that's something I just can't live without?
Well, living back here, I didn't like air conditioning until I moved back here. And I don't think I could survive some of the summer days without air conditioning now. Of course, I've gotten older and I just can't handle heat like I used to.
But another thing, we all get used to it.
Yeah, take a lot of things for granted, don't
Yeah,
we?
we sure do.
Yeah.
You've covered some wonderful things about the past and Marshall and where you've been in your life. If you were, say, in another part of the world and you were saying to someone, I live in Marshall, Illinois, and they'd say, Marshall, where? What's that? What would you tell them about Marshall and why it might be a place they'd like to visit?
Well, having lived in a large city environment, you're a lot safer here than you are there. Because when you backed out of your driveway in the morning to go to work, you didn't know whether your house was going to be burglarized before you got home or not. And you can leave your windows open at night and not. Right now, Damien, the whole back end of my house is open. I've got a sunroom, and all those windows are open, nothing but some screen wire. And I don't worry about anybody going in. My house is locked, but all they have to do is split the screen and go in. I think we've got everything over a large area other than the good grocery stores and medical. We really fall short when it comes to medical help. Police aren't really, fortunately, I don't think they're too awful busy right now. It could change in a heartbeat. I hope it doesn't. But the safety part is the part that I really, really like. And you can go in a grocery store or anywhere and probably run into somebody you know too. The more family-friendly, warm part of it.
And I think one thing, most people from out of town that visit here do comment on how clean and neat and tidy things are, and most people take good care of their properties.
I was leaving the band concert one night, and this guy was visiting from out of town, and because I could tell from their conversation, as I was walking ahead of them, but you couldn't help but hear what they were talking about. And he's talking about how neat the band concert was and that. And we were right out here in the middle of the intersection, and I was headed for my car over here. And he said, this is as close, this is as near being in middle America, Norman Rockwell, as you can get. And I thought, how true, how
That's
true.
right. He hit it right on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mary Jo, it's been a delight visiting with you.
Well, I've been.
And I think, you did have a story to tell us.
I guess.
And as I tell people, this is not for today, tomorrow, or even next year, but it stays in the file here. It's part of the library. It's for future, for people to see what experiences our residents of Marshall have had, where they lived and what brought them back to town.
Well, and I'm sure our family wasn't unique as far as scandal or anything like that. My uncle was an alcoholic and was well known around town, and that some things, you know, you kind of, but that's part of life.
And there's always, everyone has a skeleton somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a delight. I want to thank you for your time and your coming in and taking part in our oral history project.
I enjoyed it.
It's been a delight. And
Last time I
thank you.
was in here,